Darren, to begin with, the to and fro at PMQs kind of saw Keir Starmer in confident, jovial mood, but not really, I didn't think, rapier-like, and Boris Johnson much more confident than yesterday. Who did you think won that battle of the two today?
I think in many ways the Prime Minister did, and I say that not because actually in the grand scheme of things it was a very messy PMQs, probably a score draw, but given where the Prime Minister was coming from, you would have thought Keir Starmer would have done better. Now, why do I say that? I think you're right. Keir Starmer didn't land the punches that he's done in previous occasions at Prime Minister's Question Time. He did make some jokes, they did go down pretty well, but I'm not entirely sure making fun or light of this, even though it's what some members of the public have done, was the right tone again for Keir Starmer. I think he kind of should have played more on the difficult patch that everyone has been, and the unfortunate people who have died because of this pandemic. I think for the Prime Minister there was a very clear, deliberate change of tactic. Yesterday he was very apologetic, he looked down, he looked beaten to a large degree, and clearly Downing Street looked at the reaction of that, looked at the reaction for Conservative MPs and felt that this was not going down very well at all. And today he came out fighting, essentially, not really answering the questions Keir Starmer was putting to him, trying to sell the argument that the government was doing a pretty good job. And it seems, up until that David Davis moment, to be really working. It did seem to rally at least the troops inside the chamber. And I think also the reason today, as where we're standing right now, and politics is a roller coaster, Nigel, at the moment. It is up and down, ebbs and flows. At the moment, I think the Prime Minister and Downing Street will be pretty pleased compared to yesterday where they're at. It does seem things have calmed down a little bit. Even suggestions that some MPs may have withdrawn the letters to Sir Graham Brady. Andrew Bridgen, one of those MPs who's called for him to go, suggesting they're not likely to reach that 54 figure this week. And so I think there's an era of calm now that Boris Johnson feels like he's bought some time.
But David Davis, Darren, is a very significant political figure, been a senior member of the Conservative Party for decades. That was a real bolt from the blue, wasn't it?
No, indeed. And don't get me wrong, when I've just said all of that, be in no doubt that the Prime Minister is still in an awful lot of peril. His premiership does still hang by a thread, and almost everyone I talk to, even some of his supporters here, still think he's in a pretty terminal state. David Davis, let's deal with him. First of all, you're right, former Brexit Secretary. He was someone who, in many ways, actually came out against Theresa May. You know, he has defended, as he said himself, Boris Johnson in the last months and years. The Prime Minister himself, I was in the gallery looking at PMQs in the Commons chamber. You can see the Prime Minister was kind of blown away by it. He didn't quite know how to react to it. It's certainly a surprise. And I think the fundamentals for Boris Johnson, and sometimes we get caught up in the minutes and the minutiae of all this, the fundamentals haven't really changed, and the difficulties for the Prime Minister. And that is kind of threefold. First of all, are there further allegations to come out? You know Dominic Cummings, whatever you think about him, he's a master strategist. Almost certainly he must have something in his back pocket. Is he leaving the best to last in terms of trying to damage the Prime Minister from his point of view? Sue Gray's report is going to come out probably now next week. I think even if it doesn't proportion blame, and that's almost certainly not going to happen, just the sheer scale of what has gone on in terms of parties in government in Downing Street, when that's laid out in black and white on paper, that will really be a real focus moment for MPs about whether to back the Prime Minister or not. And I think third of all, and this comes down to the public perception of this, the MPs, many people out there, simply don't still believe the Prime Minister on that crucial question about when he walked into the Garden in May 2020 and he looked at people drinking and eating and having a good time when everyone else was told essentially not to do that. Do they really believe he thought it was a work event? Do they really believe that? And sometimes we look at the politics at Westminster and most people aren't paying real attention to it. I think trying to get away from that is quite difficult. And from today, all people will really remember today is not the tussle between Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson. It will be that, you know, the former Brexit Secretary, some of the reasonably recognised David Davis, is telling him to go, and that he's lost another one of his MPs, and that can't be good for a Prime Minister, even though this evening Downing Street will feel in a better place than they did this time yesterday.
Darren, thank you. Well, it was a big moment.